Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special episode in this special new series on this podcast. It is called US Politics Unpacked. In this series, we will explore key events that have shaped US politics. And by understanding these moments, we can gain a clearer picture of how things work in America today. You might already know that Trump has secured a rare second term in office with a historic campaign. And in this episode, with a special guest, we will try to decode how Trump won this election and see what the Democrats did wrong. So, we have Vishnu with us for this episode, who is a political enthusiast and an experienced debater. Hey Vishnu, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm also great. So, did you find Trump's victory surprising at all?
So, by the end of the race, like the last couple of weeks, it was fairly obvious that Trump had this race in the bag. Like the Madison Square Garden rally, by that point, I was like it was fairly obvious Trump was gonna win. But at first, when Kamala Harris first jumped into the scene, I thought Kamala Harris had this race in the bag easily because she had the media on her side. She had a great vice presidential pick like Josh Shapiro in line. She could have picked him and won the election easily. So originally, I thought Kamala Harris had this race in the bag. So overall, it was fairly surprising how Trump won.
Oh, okay. So, I'm guessing you're a Trump supporter?
Actually, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and now I would consider myself to be more of an independent because I didn't really like either of the candidates in this political race. I was very supportive of Ron DeSantis originally in the Republican side, and I was fairly supportive of somebody like Dean Phillips on the Democrat side. So I would consider myself more of an independent.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, so let's come to the reasons that might explain this Trump's special and surprising victory to some. And let's start off strong by discussing the strongest reason. So, what do you think is the strongest reason that explains Trump's victory?
Okay, so I would say there are three equally strong reasons that Trump won. And first would be foreign policy. So under the Trump administration, we saw the world was at peace. We saw that there was no war in Ukraine. The Middle East was fine. Everything was going great. And then Biden came in, Kamala Harris came in, and suddenly Russia invaded Ukraine. On October 7th, Hamas attacked Israel, and there was all this instability. So I think people started realizing that Trump was a better negotiator. And the second would be the border. So obviously the border was left open by the Biden administration, but under the Trump administration, we saw effective methods like the Remain in Mexico policy and other stuff like that. So we saw great effects from that, and people realized that Trump was a better handler of the border. And finally, it would have to be the economy. And I think one of the main reason is the inflation. This is the most effective reason I would say, is because people started realizing that prices became higher, gas prices are at an all-time high, and people were overall just richer and better under the Trump administration, which is why I think Trump won.
Yeah, I agree with you very much there. Economic struggles, immigration, and foreign policy were indeed big reasons for Trump's victory. And I think the Democrats had a strong chance of putting up a female president in the White House, but they missed that chance. So let's talk about some of the mistakes the Democrats did.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with you on that one. It's really disappointing how Kamala Harris she missed the opportunity. I wish she was a stronger candidate because I really wanted to see I was really happy when Biden won because we got the first female vice president and we were starting to see this shift towards equality. But I genuinely I just don't think Kamala Harris was the right choice this campaign, and neither was Trump. But I just have to say the country decided that Trump was better than Kamala, and I think one of the reasons that happened was because we saw Kamala just becoming more and more extreme. And I think the main reason Democrats lost this election was they left the realm of foreign policy and all these economic issues. They didn't address those directly, but they went more about abortion and equality and stuff like that. But people weren't having it because the prices were too high for them to afford groceries. So they started calling the Democrats out, and ultimately that's why they lost.
Yep, that's true. And since we're speaking about this Democratic topic, Kamala didn't take a strong stance on the Israel-Palestine war. So she actually didn't take a strong side on either. So did you think that was a blunder by Harris?
I think politically it's a very big blunder. So first of all, politically that's a very huge mistake because But I think the reason her campaign decided she should do that is because like the Democratic base right now is not really united on this issue. We have some like radical Islamic people who want to the destruction of the Israel state, and we also have some like Jewish people who want the like prosperity of the Israel state. So I think she politically like might have been why she made that decision. But like it was a bad decision ultimately because like being strong on Israel was ultimately what she needed on foreign policy to look tough. But moreover, I think another reason would be like I think like overall like not taking such a strong stance and being neutral just showed that like she had like good temperament and she wasn't like taking what everyone else told her to like saying just what everyone else was saying. But I think like ultimately that was one of the reasons she looked weak on foreign policy.
Yes. And I think the Democrats made many gains during Trump's presidency in the suburban areas, but this trend proved to fail in the 2024 election. I think in the suburban areas and rural areas, Democrats didn't score too high.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the map of like which areas voted Republican and which areas like voted Democrat, it's almost 100% red. It's like 99% red, and that just shows that like the only places that actually voted Democrat are like these really densely populated cities, right? And I think the Trump coalition ultimately just strengthened their own base in these rural areas because those people started to see like the Trump is becoming the GOP and the de facto leader of the GOP, and these lifelong Republicans just wanted to like support their party.
Yes, I agree with you there. So, one more thing I would like to talk about is how Trump gained more votes from Latino and the Latino people. And that's kind of surprising, right? Because Trump actually talked so much about deporting Mexican people, and still Latinos and Mexicans who became US citizens voted in record numbers for the Republicans. So why do you think this happened?
Yeah, so I think we have to like there's 2 points crucially here. One is the 2 assassination attempts. I think they created a lot of sympathy for Donald Trump and the Republicans in particular. So I think that's one of the reasons. Another one just has to be the fact that like I think immigration, people started to see that like Trump doesn't act like the other side of the coin, how like leaving the border open has all these detrimental effects like fentanyl flow. And I think crucially though, the endorsement of RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, and also like finally Joe Rogan, all these like moderate on all these moderates and even Democrats endorsing Trump started people like making people realize, even like Latinos and like black men, these people started realizing that like okay, like Trump doesn't hate us, he's like not as he's kind of moderate, because I think like the endorsement of RFK Jr. definitely played a role in that. And also we started to see like this sort of distrust of the media because the media started like propping up Trump as like a really mean individual, but like I think people look past that in this election cycle.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So, I would like to bring up the topic of swing states because Trump swept all these states, which is really surprising because the media was actually predicting it's going to be a really close fight and Harris might actually come on top with these swing states. So, how did this go wrong? Like, how did the media not predict this correctly?
Yeah, so first of all, like the media is like just like generally gets things wrong, and I think a lot of like the liberal media especially like just predicted that Harris would win to create momentum for her campaign, although they knew that was wrong. And even like CNN started like predicting Trump would win like the week before the election. But crucially, I think we have to talk about Pennsylvania, right? And Pennsylvania is like typically could have been easy for the Democrats to take because like as we brought up earlier, if Kamala Harris picked the governor of Pennsylvania as Josh Shapiro as her VP, this would ultimately lead her to like win the. I thought she'd had 100% chance of winning the election if she got Pennsylvania, but she missed her VP selection as like Tim Walz, and I think that's another reason she lost. And Josh Shapiro would have been a really good asset for them, but ultimately, the moderate came to Trump simply because of his endorsement by like these Democrats like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. Even like just independents and moderates started realizing Trump is a party of unity.
Right, right. So I would like to talk about some specific swing states, right? So there's Pennsylvania there. So I think Pennsylvania is probably the most important swing state, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The most electoral votes in any swing state.
Right. So what do you think Trump's strategy was in Pennsylvania? Like how did he secure this swing state.
Yeah, so Trump's strategy in Pennsylvania was mainly like, he got like the first assassination attempt was in Pennsylvania, and he went back to the exact same place that he was, shot, and he showed a lot of strength there. I think that led, like, again, a lot of sympathy, but moreover, like, I think Kamala Harris not picking Josh Shapiro was a crucial mistake, which ultimately, like, pushed the tide in favor of Trump, but finally the RFK endorsements, and moreover, I think just, like, showing how, like, on policy Trump was stronger, like, led a lot of these independents to, like, switch their vote to Trump. And moreover, like, I think the Democrats weren't clear enough on their foreign policy or economic policy, which, like, led a lot of undecided voters onto the Trump train. But finally, I think it's crucial to note that, like, these independent areas, they saw, like, the Trump campaign was, like, especially at the Madison Square Garden rally right before the election. I think a lot of undecided voters, even like right before the election, saw the strength and unity in the Trump party by like seeing like these people like Vivek Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., make show, and like even Dana White sort of like show up. And finally, like, I think the Joe Rogan endorsement pushed over a lot of undecided male voters onto the Trump train. And this is ultimately why he won all the swing states.
Right. He also brought Elon Musk to the same place I think he got shot at.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Elon Musk is another reason that
Yes.
Trump probably won. Probably the main reason.
Yeah, so I think Elon Musk like played one of the biggest gambles of his life and putting blind trust into Trump. And I think it paid off. Like now, as soon as Trump won the election, Tesla and all his companies saw a big spike in their stocks. And I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a good 4 years for Elon Musk as his buddy is now in control of the most powerful nation in the world.
Yeah, so I think it's also important to note that the Republicans like seize the Senate, seize the House, and also like they have the Supreme Court. So like Trump has to do like everything he said down to the letter, otherwise his coalition will just keep becoming weaker. That's like an important thing. But also I think yes, Elon Musk's like gambit really played off there. Like, but I think it could have been the opposite. It could have been the flip side. It could have been a hugely bad risk, and like even like I think it's wrong that like the supporters of the winning side stock goes up. I think it's wrong, and that's like just personally my opinion. But still, congrats to Elon Musk and congrats to all Republicans.
And I think if Trump would have lost this election, the Biden and the Harris administration would have tried to get rid of Elon and try to defame Elon, right? As much as
Yes,
it
like
would.
that's not to say like the Harris or Democrats are necessarily bad in any ways. This would happen either way. Like for example, Trump winning, like a lot of like lifelong Democrats are scared for their freedoms and like scared because like he's threatened to send them to prison, and this is like a lot of, and I think it's the Democrats' fault for like the legal warfare because they opened the gate to this. They were the ones who like started like putting cases against Trump, whether they're real or not. Like it's just like led all of his like party to sort of like get more aligned under the Trump idea because they felt like more sympathy for him, and then the assassination attempts just like created like the ultimate sympathy within his coalition, and that's like ultimately why he won.
Yes, coming to that, Trump's court cases are still pending. Like, I think the trial will be spoken at in November, late November. So, do you think Trump can bypass those and still become president?
Yeah, we already saw like special counsel Jack Smith like sort of like remove himself from the position, and we saw like all these people prosecuting Trump get more wary. So I think definitely all the cases are going to go away. But this is something I wanted to bring up. It's like really wrong how the winners of the political spectrum you just get away with whatever they've done, and I think whether Democrats do it or whether Republicans do it, it's wrong. And this is ultimately like I can understand why Republicans would think that like this is like political warfare, all of these trials are fake, but at some point you're gonna have to open yourself up to the conduct. Like we reminded you of J6 earlier this podcast. Like the conduct in J6, whether it was illegal or legal, the conduct is below the presidential office of the United States. But I think people looked past that because they were more focused on policy.
Right, right. So, would you like to add anything to this list we've kind of made on Trump's victory?
I think I just like to restate that like he has to do everything he said he would do because he has the Senate. He can't make any more excuses. It's time to get down and get to work. Otherwise, he's gonna lose the election and the Republican Party will be finished. This has to be a really, really clean and good administration.
Right, right. So, I think I would like to add one more reason. I think it's gonna be the working class support Trump received. So he actually got majority of the working class voters, while the Democrats got support from the professionals and higher income voters. But the businessmen still seem to support the Republicans because of their promises of less taxes on their incomes and their companies, so and corporate taxes. So I think that was the way it should have been. The corporates still support Republicans, but I think the higher income voters still supported Democrats. But that was not enough to turn this election over.
Yeah, so like absolutely. So like I think like there's people in like those high corporate positions like Jeff Bezos, and those people like tend to vote like Democrat. But like this time we saw like Elon Musk, a lifelong Democrat, switch to the right side of the aisle, and this is probably because, as you said, he has a lot to gain from like his buddy winning.
Okay, so that's it for this episode on analyzing Trump's victory and more with Vishnu. I would like to thank Vishnu very much for joining us on today's episode, and we'll catch you in the next episode in this special series on the Knowledge Groove podcast. Thank you for listening.